Hello, welcome to Good Grazing Makes Sense. If you're involved in federal land management, whether you're a permittee or an agency person, you've likely had some issues. Maybe things aren't going your way all the time. We've got a unique situation here with a very unique individual, SRM's own Brenda Younkin, who's doing some work in DC. And Brenda, your name keeps coming up in conversations. Everybody's excited that one of our own is in DC doing something. So could you give us a background on you and tell us what you're doing in DC? And it sounds really exciting. Maybe it's not as exciting in real life. I don't know. I've never been to DC, but
It's pretty exciting. Thanks, Dave. My name is Brenda Younkin. I'm a senior advisor for the Bureau of Land Management at the headquarters in Washington, D.C. I moved here. I relocated for this temporary position from Wyoming. There's been adjustments on everything from number of people to humidity to all kinds of other things. It's my first stint as a federal employee, which is also new. So there's been lots of learning. My background is I'm a ranch kid. I grew up in western Nebraska and just kind of continued moving. I took a brief stint a little east. I went to Lincoln to finish my bachelor's in range at University of Nebraska. Moved west to Utah State to finish to take my master's in range. Since I was lucky in that since my undergrad was in range, I was able to focus my master's really more on habitat and NEPA and land use planning. So I got a lot of good experience and different experiences doing that. And then I never really moved back. I just pretty well stayed west. I did, again, a brief foray back to Nebraska to work with Kim Stein, another SRM very active member at a joint position between NRCS and Nebraska Cattlemen. So I was working basically helping build conservation plans for people that had mostly farms and a few cows. So that was an interesting first role. Moved to Colorado for about a year and a half and wrote environmental analysis documents to reauthorize training on National Guard bases in Wyoming and Hawaii. And there was a reason that I got both of those projects, but Hawaii, I was like, all right, I get to go. And I spent 5 days, 4 times in a year in a DoD conference room. So that was a little disappointing.
aloha.
Dinner was nice, but yeah, so I got some good experience with NEPA there. And then went to consulting and started working in the West really at that point. A brief detour to a nonprofit in Teton County, Wyoming, Teton Science Schools, and was their conservation research center, ultimately their conservation research center director, and continued working on Western lands through that group. And then went back out on my own in 2013. My husband and I started a company in 2010, and so he was managing the engineering side of that company. And then when I came over, we added the natural resources component to it. So since 2013, have been pretty solidly on public lands issues. Well, really since about 2002, pretty solidly on public lands issues. And I'd say if I had to split, it's about 80% BLM and 20%, probably 10% Forest Service and 10% private development in Wyoming. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in a lot of field offices, BLM field offices throughout the West. I've been on the other side of the table, working with like my clients as grazing permittees and everything from doing, and the needs kind of change over the years with the administration and with, what kind of issues are bubbling up at the time. But vegetation, data collection, land health evaluation, and standards documents, either development or review, term permit renewals for grazing, including NEPA and IDT management, working on fire, whether it's closures or reopening. Wild horses have been a recurring theme through my career. Sage grouse have been a recurring theme through my career. So those are kind of the big areas that I have focused on.
Yeah, that's an extensive background, but for folks listening or viewing, Brenda's too humbled to mention how good she is at those things. I realize that you've done a lot of things, but I have firsthand experience of Brenda and her team's work, and it is outstanding work. It is all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed when you work with Brenda and White.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate that. I have a great team
Yeah,
who's holding down the fort while I'm in DC, so I'm grateful for that as well. It did take a village to be able to get me to be able to take this kind of life detour.
yeah, and it's quite a deal. So how did this come about?
Karen Bud Fallon is the shortest answer that I can give you. when Karen was involved with the first Trump administration, and we have continued to work together for about the last 20 plus years. So when Karen was looking at this opportunity with this administration, she had initially reached out, and I laughed. I thought, no, you are out of your mind. And she was like, I had to try. And then I thought about it. I talked to my husband about it. I kind of went back to Karen a couple different times, and finally I said, okay, for these particular issues and these particular issues alone, like I'm in. But so it's been an interesting adventure. I've been here about 2.5 months. That in some ways feels like a minute, and in some ways feels like decades. But it is never a dull moment. So, and I'm working on essentially the same issues that I dealt with in my consulting career. So sage grouse, land use planning and plan revisions, grazing regulations. I'm just on the regulatory side as opposed to on the implementation side. So trying to learn from all that time in the field offices and how to help address some of the challenges that exist in existing regulatory authorities.
So before we get into those issues, I think that's probably why people are listening, if they're listening. Can you tell us about Karen Bud Fallon? What's her role there right now? What's her relationship?
I can. I will tell you, I am the worst at titles, and that's one thing that there are a prolific amount of titles here. But Karen is the Assistant Secretary of the Interior. She's focusing primarily on the more natural resource areas within the department and within really within the Department of the Interior. She's an attorney out of Cheyenne, Wyoming, and has been a huge advocate for the ranching community for her entire career. So she and her husband Frank have Bud Fallon law offices in Cheyenne. So she's taken a leave of absence from the firm, as I did with my consulting firm, to come and serve in the administration. So Karen's primary focus is sort of all things West. And there are other Wyoming folks here too. Wyoming is, given our very small population, we're very well represented in the administration, and particularly in interior and in the bureau. So it's great to see some other folks from the West in DC as well. We're all fish out of water, so we commiserate over humidity and people.
So keeping it high level for now, Karen Bud Fallon's role is all things interior land. So would that include energy?
It does. Yes, she's kind of over
everything going on public lands in the West.
It's the Secretary of the Interior, the Deputy Secretary of the Interior, Karen, and then there's an Assistant Secretary that is under Karen.
Okay. I think that's helpful to get context for what's going on out
here. My arms are on the org chart, and I still don't obviously fumble with the titles. I don't actually know what my title is, to tell you the truth. So I feel like I say it a little bit differently every time. I'm just doing regs. I'm just doing regulation updates.
So my next question, is this normal for the Department of Interior to bring in folks from outside with their knowledge, like with you right now? This is a unique situation.
This has been a very unique experience, I think, for staff who had been told that, I have this technical background and I have this expertise, and I think there was a lot of like, and then now I'm here and they're like, you do actually know the program. I do, yeah, actually. So I think we've been able to really hit the ground running. The progress that's been made just since I've been here, I think, is pretty phenomenal. And part of it is because I can be here to help champion things with Karen's sort of oversight and direction, as well as the staff have a great handle on, I can't tell you how many times it's been, well, here's from Trump 1, here's what we got to, or, so we're not ever starting from zero, which has been great. It's an interesting contradiction between being a political appointee and career staff. I'm just, having never been a political appointee or career staff, either one, it's just been interesting to kind of figure out where we both play and how it makes this very unique system that we have work. So that's been an interesting, and I continue to learn about what people can and can't do and where I can fit in there. So
I'm so impressed with just getting people in DC who know which end of the cow eats the grass. That is so important to me. Is USDA doing anything like this on the Forest Service side? Do they have a similar? Do you have a Forest Service counterpart?
I think, not that I'm aware of, but that doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. I just have been pretty well. I got here and kind of jumped into the deep end of my pool and haven't really left. So we are coordinating with the Forest Service on some exciting updates on grazing regs, so I can talk about those when we're ready to get there. I will say that the Forest Service, I know the folks that I'm working with the most are their career staff, but they were range field cons or field range cons. They have moved their way up through the organization, but that still spent their time clipping for production and monitoring for utilization and working with permittees. And so it's great to have them as kind of contacts in the.
It's awesome. So the meat of it, what projects are you working on? What are you excited about? What changes do you see happening?
Yeah, so there's a lot. This is a very, very busy administration. It's pretty mind blowing to me how many big things are in the air. So, the president was very clear that he wanted to see the conservation land health rule be rescinded. So that's in the works. Sort of concurrently working on, and these are all in varying degrees of completion, right? So some are farther along than others. But the five sage grouse plans are in the process of going out for their last round of public comment on the significant change documents. So those will be coming soon. The states have been busy working away on those and working with the governor's offices in their respective states to make sure that we've got those consistency reviews right. And that the governors are clear on what's being proposed. So those will be coming soon. That'll be probably the first big output that you see from sort of my side of the shop. There's a lot of activity in the energy sector, as I'm sure you can imagine, but I'm looking at the dirt, I'm looking at plants. The grazing regulation update is in the works. We're taking something comparable from the conservation rule in that really trying to create a monitoring plan and an environmental review plan that does allow us to take a look at what all is impacting the landscape, not just livestock, but we know that other programs certainly can influence what's happening on the grounds. So trying to kind of work with our existing tools, whether it's AIM or something else, to come up with that sort of landscape level environmental review, as well as our program specific tools to know sort of for short-term indicators for livestock and some of those sorts of things. So really looking at trying to make functional systems work and in a little better concert with the Forest Service. So certainly, we both have different underlying charters and statutory obligations, but we're still administering grazing, right? So we have a lot of permittees that have both permits with BLM and Forest Service. So our feeling is the more that we can sort of coordinate those to the extent possible, particularly on monitoring and on kind of overall. When I say allotment administration, I don't want people to think that the BLM is not turning into the Forest Service and vice versa, but in thinking about coordinating, with flexibility of I need to leave a couple weeks earlier, I need to stay a couple weeks longer, just making it a little bit easier for those authorized officers from each agency to really coordinate with the permittee that's on both sides of the fence, if you will. And I'm excited. Gilbert Jackson and I are going to be from the Forest Service, and I are going to be at the Public Lands Council meeting in September, and we'll be doing a workshop. Some of what methods are the most appropriate, talking about process considerations for monitoring, how we can really make sure that the permittees are comfortable with the monitoring that's being proposed. And I think it's pretty critical for both of us to feel like we don't want to create something new. Like we've had the same methods that worked for grazing for a really long time, and both agencies have signed off on methodologies. And so how do we package that in a way that provides some accountability and some consistency both for the agencies and the permittees? So that's in the works, and I'm pretty excited about that. We also have the Forest Service, I don't think they've released it yet, but should be coming soon, some updates to their handbook, and we're again to be as consistent as is appropriate in our regulatory and handbook updates as well, so that there's some consistent language in the administration of some of these permits.
Are we going to see any changes to NEPA throughout this process?
So that's actually out right now, and the public it should be wrapping up. I can follow up with you on where that is, but there's been a significant overhaul proposed for NEPA that really does streamline the process. Some of it is going to sound familiar from the first Trump administration. It's the putting in page limit restrictions for both EAs and EISs, as well as time limits for completion. Really trying to get it so that an EIS doesn't go through multiple administrations is a big goal of the administration. That's something that was Karen Fallon's kind of first process to look at, and as part of the larger, sort of deregulation focus of the administration, that was one of the first things that was released. So that's actually, I want to say July 1st, it was posted in the Federal Register. So that comment period should be closed. And I haven't seen the kind of summary comments from that yet, but it should be coming soon. So that should be official, before too long. And some of the great stuff with that is the time limits, page limits, and then it's modified the public comment process. We're in one of the other rules that's up for review is the land use planning rule, and so that will be working to make that that and NEPA consistent. We have some irregularities with ACEC public comment periods and those sorts of things. So just trying to make sure that all these things are in alignment and that one rule isn't accidentally triggering something else in another rule or being additive, so that there's just some kind of apples to apples for some of these comment periods and things that make a document feel like it takes forever and ever because you've got 90 days of comment here and 90 days there. Just looking at what really needs, where that time needs to be put. The other thing that's, and this is, I know, a critical a very important issue for Karen Fallon as well, is that consistency review and coordination at the state level with any existing state plans. So that's something that is, it's not considered as much in NEPA, but it will be in the land use planning regulations, and how to really best incorporate the governor's office in those consistency review processes and bringing the players that need to be at the table in a little bit earlier in the process. You hate to get to the end of what you think is the end of a project and then you go, oh, this isn't good. So we're trying to put some safeguards in place that would help minimize that from happening. I don't think it's something that happens super often, but when it does, it's really not good.
So lots of great things happening out there. And I can't be the only one who's got this question. How are we making sure that these great changes don't just go out the window in the next administration or the next, how do we make sure these substantial changes remain and are viable?
So I think lessons learned from the first administration, that's part of why you're seeing this significant focus early on these kind of what I'm going to call big ticket items. The grazing regs are a great example. So those were actually in the pipeline for the final internal review right as the administration was changing, and then they just sort of got set aside. So we've picked those up again, and that's what we're starting from, but just trying to get these big initiatives done early so that we can get through rulemaking and potentially through any litigation that may come. I mean, obviously, we just have to sort of plan for that, and making these rules as solid as we can be. The intention is to make these be durable and have them be durable changes. And I think as the agencies and as the public are really starting to implement some of these rules, the revised rules, they will see the time savings. I mean, it isn't changing the scrutiny on a project or, getting rid of NEPA or anything like that, but it's how do we make these processes make sense and fit. And the field offices are like, please give me a process that I can build an RMP in less than, some of these have been going on since 2010, 2008, and they're not done. And so, you can't have a land use planning product. You shouldn't have a land use planning product that's 25 years old because you can't get through the process. So it's not, I think from an agency perspective, it will actually improve management on the landscape because we'll be able to get approved plans on the landscape. And the litigation opportunities still remain, the protest opportunities. So it's not about, shutting out the public. It's about basically getting to decisions in a timely manner so that we can have those processes work their way through and get through the system. So, my feeling with the BLM as a consultant was always, tell me no. Like, at least then I have a process, but don't tell me nothing. So trying to, make those decision points clear and attach some timeframes to them, holding everybody. I guess it's the kind of the approach that we've taken with outcome-based grazing is flexibility with accountability. Right? So let's make decisions, let's be accountable for those decisions, and let's follow the process to implement those decisions once the dust settles.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that the system has not been working for some time now. I'm so glad to see people like you out there helping to push this forward.
The other thing that I would add to that is that I know from my experience in the on the other side of the table is that quite often when a rulemaking is done, the agency may decide to wait to actually do the implementation guidance until they know if the rule is going to make it through. And we're not doing that. We're going to go ahead and work through that implementation guidance and have that so that we can send out kind of the package
Just
once it's all done. It'll be here's the rule, here's how to implement the rule, go forth.
yeah, that's got to help. Having everything established has got to help keep it around. I think leaving something 90% done, that 10% could really slow things down.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't want to. I mean, and like I said, this isn't just the Trump administration has cooked up this idea. This is literally from decades of experience of career staff of people like me. I'm certainly not the only one in the department or in the bureau from private industry. So there's been a lot of thought from a lot of different directions that's been trying to work through this and figure out, is this the best play? Is this this is something that I always got caught up on on the other side of the table in the field office. Like, how can we again not eliminate a part of the process, but basically make the process work? Because it as you said, it just hasn't been. And I think anyone who's honest about how public lands management has been going has to admit that there's definitely we could improve on some things for sure, but it's been great to have it isn't just Brenda coming in and saying thou shalt write this regulation. It's staff saying this drives me crazy. Can we please this is what I've been thinking about for how to fix this. So it's been really really great to see that sort of investment, the investment that the staff have, not only at headquarters, but I think I haven't interacted as much with field level folks from here, but from headquarters, the investment that the staff have in having a good regulation that works for the agency is huge. I mean, it isn't, they're not sitting here just like, oh, I'm punching the clock. I'm here. And they're here busting it, just and they've been keeping this list of notes for some of them for a pretty long time, trying to get some of these changes implemented. And so that to speak to the durability, I hope that that's helps with that durability too, because there are things that have they're sort of systemic that have needed addressed for quite a while, and staff certainly know where those pitfalls are better than anybody. I'm happy to. I feel like there's not anything that staff have said, hey, can we do this, or that I've said, hey, what about this, that we've just said, oh no, we can't get to agreement on that. And that makes my job 10 times easier or more. I don't know how much. I don't know how hard it would be if I was pulling teeth, but it would not be better.
The overlap of things that aren't working for producers and staff and the agency overall is probably a pretty big chunk. I'm guessing we agree more. All of us agree more on what's not working than we don't, and that's nice to hear.
Yeah.
We can.
I honestly had no idea what to expect coming in. I was kind of prepared for the gamut of, yeah, really didn't know what to expect. And it's been a hugely pleasant surprise. It's a great bunch of folks to work with here. And like I said, they're extremely dedicated. They're tuned into the mission, and and just they want to see their program succeed just as much as I want to, or you want to, or Karen, or any land user, public land user does.
Yeah. So one final question for me. You're incredibly busy, so I don't want to keep you too long, but you have a new view that most of us don't get to see. Do you have any new guidance or new advice for how the average producer, the average citizen, can best advocate for themselves now with this new view you have? Are there things you think are more valuable than you used to think, or
It's so interesting because I have talked to multiple people. So one of the ironies for me is that I've probably been in the field office more recently than almost anybody else on this floor. Some of them have never still been in the field office. So trying to figure out how to navigate that sort of a disconnect. It makes it sound worse than it is, but there, to some extent, is a disconnect between DC and the West. Part of its time zone, part of its culture. I mean, I talk about fish out of water here. Somebody
Yeah.
was like, "How are you liking DC?" I'm like, country mouse in the city. It's great, but there's a difference in communication. There's a difference in style, and so I think having don't be afraid to reach out to the state office, to reach out to, the politicals, the ask the state, like, have you talked to the headquarters, or ask the field office manager, or the district manager, like, is this a policy or is this an interpretation? Because there are some things that, each office kind of, and one of the things that we're really focusing on is sort of standardization. There's some things that have to be specific, that are site specific, and that's great. But from my perspective, a term permit EA should have the same pieces in it. It should be it should be the same format. It should, like this, we should not be reinventing the wheel every single time that we start that we hit, new document. And I know, from my experience working with you, is that that's not what we get, even sometimes under the same roof of a BLM building. And so trying to take part of that is, for me, it's a personal pain point that I would like to see fixed. But I'm hoping that a lot of what we're doing will make it easier for producers to kind of see behind the curtain. And it's kind of what I've been calling my experience here. Is like, I'm in Oz. Somebody pulled the velvet curtain back, and I'm like, oh, hey, what's going on back there?
So, it's a scary curtain. It's
definitely got some lead weights on the bottom of it. That's
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, I don't think I want to know whose feet those are. I'm just gonna go back over here. Yeah, so just ask questions, stay and I would say, just given the agency, kind of what I'm seeing, how things kind of roll out from here. I mean, I think we've probably all been in a field office when something has been issued from headquarters, and you kind of get the collective eye roll from the field of like, oh, those people don't know what's going on. And so part of what I'm trying to do from this end is say, we need a little more engagement, whether it's through the state office and then down or what, but like there's the disconnect between how we do things and how they do things. And so how do we, and that's a cultural issue, right? That's not a write a new memo or instructional memo and press of change it fixes. A lot of these are really sort of systemic changes that that need to be thought through and rolled out. And so we're looking at everything from training plans because with NEPA, for example, we've got this great new guidance. How do you use it? And how do you not want to just turn to the same NEPA document that you've used for the last 25 years and just keep using that? So I think some of it is showing the benefit to the updated systems to staff and helping the public understand that these are out there. 101, I can remember that number because I always think it's 101 Dalmatians. We've had 101 categorical exclusions, have been added to the agency's option list. And so if you're doing a pipeline along an existing road, there's a CE for that. So there are so many things that it's a pain. Like, I fully understand my clients are like, Brenda, I don't want to have to sort out what's in 101 CEs. But if you don't, then go talk to your range con and say, hey, there's 101 new CEs. Which ones apply to my allotment? And help them understand that those are there, and help them understand how to help you get what you need to get done in your allotment management. So, don't just keep asking questions, and it isn't always, it's, in fact, I think rarely that the staff are being difficult. It's just they may not know that these exist either. So I've told everyone here, I'm like, don't assume I know something. I would rather get the information twice than not at all. And I also, because I haven't been on this side of the curtain before, I know what I need to get, but I might be asking for the wrong thing. So, please give me the information I need, not if it's not the information that I've asked for. And just having some of those conversations, I think, with your range staff or with your field manager or district manager will just help kind of build that relationship. And as these new guidances come out and rulemakings come out, everybody can kind of learn together a little bit and hopefully figure out some good ways to move things forward. But there's definitely been a lot of energy put into making lives easier for both permittees and the office staff. I mean, I would love to have a range con who can actually go out and do their own utilization monitoring and and meet with their permittees and be in the field, as opposed to responding to a FOIA or working on a 4-year land health evaluation, kind of a thing. That's the end goal of what we're trying to accomplish, is to help. It's hard to manage a landscape if you don't get to see it.
Yeah, and also ultimately this leads to better rangeland health too. I mean, that's our ultimate goal, and producers and cattle are often one of the best ways to get there.
Exactly.
I can't thank you enough for what you're doing. I see what a sacrifice it is. Please know that all of us who are still in the country really appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks, Dave.
We hope to see you back soon, but
Yeah.
not too soon.
Yeah, me too. We're making progress, but I'm going to be here for a while yet. And if for anyone if you're in DC, give me a call. Dave's got my email, so just reach out and I'll do what I can.
Yeah, we'll put it up there. We'll put your BLM email when we post this,
Great.
if that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on. Thanks for explaining what's going on and revealing what's behind that curtain. It's a little less scary now that we've talked.
Glad to hear it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.